The moon hung silently in space, its dark surface broken only by the soft glow of excavation lights. Deep within its frozen core, behind layers of ancient stone and metal, lay a discovery that would change the galaxy forever. Dr. Smith wiped the sweat from his forehead as he studied the strange markings on the wall. After 3 months of digging, his team had finally broken through to what appeared to be some kind of sealed chamber. The air was thick with excitement as researchers from 20 different species crowded around the entrance. "Bring the scanning equipment closer," he called out, his voice echoing in the cramped tunnel. The floating light pods cast long shadows on the walls, making the alien script seem to dance and shift. "These markings, they're unlike anything we've seen before." Behind him, his assistant Bob, a tall creature with blue-tinted scales, carefully maneuvered the sensitive equipment into position. "Energy readings are off the charts, Doctor. Whatever's in there has been powered up for at least 10,000 years." The team worked carefully, methodically, documenting every step as they prepared to open the chamber. None of them wanted to risk damaging what could be the greatest discovery of the century. The door itself was a marvel, a seamless piece of metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It took them 3 days to figure out how to open it. When the door finally slid aside with a soft hiss, the chamber beyond left them speechless. The room was perfectly circular, its walls covered in the same strange writing they'd found outside. But it was what stood in the center that caught everyone's attention. The armor floated in a beam of light, suspended in midair without any visible support. It was humanoid in shape, but unlike any armor anyone had ever seen. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, catching and reflecting the light in impossible ways. It seemed to be made of thousands of tiny scales that moved and shifted, even though no one was touching it. "Remarkable," whispered Dr. Smith, taking a cautious step forward. His instruments showed no radiation, no dangerous energy emissions, just a steady, pulsing power source that seemed to come from the armor itself. The first attempt to interact with the armor came from Captain Rock, a warrior from the stone-skinned people of the Outer Rim. He approached confidently, his crystalline hands extended. But as soon as he got within arm's reach, the armor's surface went completely still. It might as well have been a statue. "Strange," Rock rumbled, his gravelly voice confused. "It's like it's ignoring me." Over the next few days, experts from across the galaxy arrived to study the mysterious artifact. They'd brought the most advanced scanning equipment, the most sensitive instruments, but the armor revealed few of its secrets. The only thing they could determine for certain was that it was meant to be worn. Professor Light, a being of pure energy, tried to merge with it. The armor remained cold and unresponsive. The shapeshifters of the mist planets attempted to match its exact molecular structure. Nothing. Even the highly advanced mechanical beings from the core systems couldn't establish any kind of connection. "It's as if it's waiting for something," Dr. Smith noted in his log that evening. "Or someone. The power source remains active, but the armor itself refuses to respond to any attempt at interaction. It's like finding a key without knowing what lock it belongs to." What they didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that the lock they were looking for hadn't even arrived at the station yet. The armor's true purpose would remain a mystery until a most unlikely candidate would stumble upon it by complete accident. But for now, it waited, floating silently in its beam of light, while the greatest minds in the galaxy tried to unlock its secrets. The strange writing on the walls seemed to watch their efforts with ancient amusement, holding tight to mysteries that had waited thousands of years to be revealed. In his quarters that night, Dr. Smith looked over the preliminary translations of the wall text. One phrase kept repeating, though its meaning escaped him: "to bond with the heart, not the form." He noted it down, not realizing that in just a few short weeks, its meaning would become crystal clear. News of the mysterious armor spread quickly across the galaxy. Within weeks, the small research station became crowded with visitors from every known civilization. They all came with the same goal: to be the one who could finally activate the ancient suit. The station's main laboratory, once a quiet place of study, now looked more like a testing ground. Dr. Smith and his team had set up a proper viewing area where representatives from different worlds could take turns trying to connect with the armor. First came the Warriors of Stone, led by their champion, Thunder. His people were known for their incredible strength. They could crush diamonds with their bare hands. Thunder approached the armor with complete confidence. "This will be simple," he said, his voice rumbling like distant mountains. "The armor clearly waits for the strongest among us." But when Thunder reached out, the armor didn't even twitch. He tried for hours, growing more frustrated with each attempt. Finally, he left, his stone face cracked with disappointment. Next came the light beings from the star systems near the galaxy's core. They were creatures of pure energy who could take any form they wished. Their leader, Spark, was sure she could merge with the armor's power source. "Our bodies are pure energy," she glowed brightly as she spoke. "We can match any power signature." Yet when Spark tried to connect with the armor, it seemed to grow even more solid, more physical. Her light simply bounced off its surface, creating beautiful but useless patterns on the laboratory walls. The Metal Kings arrived next, certain that their mastery of technology would let them communicate with the suit. They brought their most advanced computers and tools, setting up complex machines around the armor. "Everything can be understood through proper analysis," their chief engineer declared. But after a week of constant scanning and probing, they too admitted defeat. Even the famous shapeshifters of the mist worlds couldn't make any progress. They could copy the armor's exact shape down to the smallest detail, but they couldn't make it respond. "It's becoming known as the Great Refuser in the outer systems," Bob told Dr. Smith one evening as they reviewed the day's failed attempts. "Some are saying it's just a dead relic, that it will never work again." But Dr. Smith wasn't convinced. The armor's power source remained steady, humming with the same energy they detected on day one. "It's not dead," he said, studying the latest readings. "It's choosing." More visitors arrived every day. The cloud dancers tried to bond with it through movement. The deep space singers tried to wake it with their famous harmonies. The Silicon Mind Collective attempted to hack into its systems. Nothing worked. The station's observation deck became crowded with frustrated beings from across the galaxy. They watched as attempt after attempt failed, each failure adding to the armor's mysterious reputation. Dr. Smith continued his research, focusing on the strange writings on the chamber walls. "There's something we're all missing," he told his team during their daily meeting. "The text keeps talking about the perfect match and the balance of mind and heart. But what does that mean?" The armor floated silently in its beam of light, seemingly indifferent to all the attention. Its surface would occasionally ripple, like water in a gentle breeze, but it remained as mysterious as ever. As the weeks passed, some visitors began to leave. They decided the armor was either broken or too selective to be worth their time. But others stayed, determined to solve the puzzle. None of them noticed the quiet maintenance engineer who had just arrived at the station. He was just another human. After all, one of the physically weaker species by galactic standards. No one thought he could be important. They were all about to learn how wrong they were. Tom Reed yawned as he pushed his cleaning cart down the quiet hallway of the research station. It was late in the night cycle, his favorite time to work. Most of the scientists and visitors were asleep, leaving him free to do his job in peace. He'd only been on the station for 3 days, but he'd already learned to avoid the busier hours. The various alien species that crowded the halls during the day barely noticed him, but their size and strength made him nervous. Just yesterday, he'd almost been stepped on by one of the stone warriors who was too busy looking at data charts to watch where he was going. "At least the night shift is quiet," Tom muttered to himself as he approached the main laboratory. He had to clean it daily. All those important visitors left quite a mess. His security badge beeped softly as he pressed it against the door scanner. The lab was dark except for one bright beam of light in the center. Tom had heard about the mysterious armor, of course. It was all anyone talked about on the station. But this was his first time seeing it up close. "Pretty thing, aren't you?" he said softly, wheeling his cart closer. The armor hung in its beam of light, its surface moving like quicksilver. Tom started his usual cleaning routine, carefully wiping down the observation area's railings and screens. As he worked, he found himself talking to the armor. It was a habit he'd developed over years of working alone at night. "Must be tiring, having all these fancy folks poking at you all day. Bet you just want some peace and quiet, huh?" The armor's surface rippled slightly, catching Tom's attention. He paused in his cleaning, watching as tiny waves seemed to move across its metallic skin. "Well, that's different," he murmured, stepping closer to get a better look. He'd been told the armor only moved when someone tried to interact with it, but all those attempts had failed. "Are you saying hello?" Tom didn't expect an answer. He was just a maintenance worker after all, not a warrior or a scientist or any of the impressive beings who'd tried to activate the armor. But as he stood there, the ripples in the armor's surface grew stronger. "Probably just the light playing tricks," he said to himself. But curiosity got the better of him. He took another step forward, now standing right next to the armor. Its surface was moving more than ever, creating patterns he'd never seen metal make before. Without thinking, Tom reached out to touch it. His fingers had barely brushed its surface when the armor suddenly came alive. Liquid metal flowed up his arm like a friendly cat rubbing against its owner. "Oh." Tom tried to step back, but the armor moved with him. It wasn't aggressive or frightening. It felt warm and somehow happy. The sensation was strange, but not uncomfortable. The armor's surface began to spread, flowing over his work uniform like water. But instead of feeling wet, it felt like a warm blanket being wrapped around him. Within seconds, Tom found himself completely encased in the ancient suit. This can't be right," he stammered. The armor felt perfect, like it had been made for him. He could move easily, and somehow he knew exactly how everything worked. The lab's emergency lights suddenly flashed on. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. Tom realized the armor must have triggered some kind of alert system. He heard running footsteps in the hallway. "I'm going to be in so much trouble," he whispered. "I was just supposed to clean the floors." The door burst open. Dr. Smith and several other scientists rushed in, stopping dead in their tracks when they saw Tom. The human maintenance worker stood in the center of the room, perfectly bonded with the armor that had rejected every other being in the galaxy. "Impossible," one of the alien scientists whispered. But there Tom stood, the armor gleaming around him like a second skin, its surface rippling with patterns of joy and excitement that everyone could see. The greatest mystery in the galaxy had just chosen a simple human janitor as its partner. The next few days were a blur of tests and questions. Tom found himself in the center of attention, something he'd always tried to avoid. Scientists from every corner of the galaxy wanted to study how the armor had bonded with him. "Try lifting this," Dr. Smith said, pointing to a metal box that even the stone warriors had struggled with. Tom looked at the box nervously. "I don't know how," he admitted. "I'm not very strong." But as soon as he thought about lifting the box, the armor seemed to understand. It didn't take over. Instead, it worked with his own muscles, making them stronger but still feeling natural. Tom lifted the box as easily as if it were made of paper. "Fascinating," Dr. Smith muttered, taking notes. "The armor isn't replacing your abilities. It's enhancing them. Can you feel what it's doing?" Tom nodded slowly. "It's like having a friend helping you lift something. We're doing it together." The more time Tom spent with the armor, the more he understood it. Unlike the scientists who had tried to command it or the warriors who had tried to dominate it, Tom found himself treating it more like a partner. During one test, he was supposed to try walking through a maze of laser beams. Before he could even think about how to do it, the armor rippled with warmth. Suddenly, he could feel where all the lasers were without seeing them. "It's not just responding to my movements," Tom explained to the amazed scientists. "It responds to what I'm feeling. When I'm nervous, it tries to comfort me. When I'm curious, it shows me new things. Bob, who had become Tom's friend during all the testing, watched with interest. Try feeling different emotions, he suggested. Let's see how it reacts. Tom thought about happy things, his family back on Earth, his favorite foods, sunny days. The armor's surface danced with beautiful patterns of light. When he thought about sad things, it changed to darker, flowing patterns that somehow felt comforting. The armor isn't just a tool, Dr. Smith realized, watching the displays. It's forming an emotional bond. That's why it rejected everyone else. They were all trying to use it, not connect with it. The scientists discovered something else interesting. Tom's brainwaves matched ancient patterns they'd found in the armor systems. But it wasn't just about matching frequencies. The armor seemed to appreciate human creativity and emotional range. One morning, Tom was taking a break in the observation room, looking out at the stars. He felt sad thinking about his old job, just being a regular maintenance worker. The armor sensed his mood and created a gentle light show across its surface, like Aurora Borealis. "Thanks," Tom said softly, and felt a warm pulse in response. "You know, everyone thinks you chose me because of some special human quality. But I think you just wanted someone who would treat you like a friend instead of a weapon." The armor's surface rippled in a way that felt like agreement. Dr. Smith watched this interaction on the monitors. "In all our tests to understand this technology," he said to his team, "we never considered that it might be looking for companionship rather than compatibility." The armor continued to surprise everyone. When Tom was working on fixing things around the station, he insisted on keeping some of his maintenance duties. The armor would help by providing tools from within itself. When he needed to reach high places, it would adjust its shape to make him taller. "It's like having the world's best spacesuit," Tom explained to Bob during lunch. "But also like having a best friend who always knows what you need." The armor hummed contentedly against his skin, its surface showing patterns that the scientists now recognized as happiness. What nobody knew was that this unique bond between human and armor would soon be tested in ways none of them could have expected. 1 month after bonding with the armor, Tom made an unexpected discovery. He was resting in his quarters, having a quiet conversation with the armor as he usually did before sleep, when something new happened. "I wish I knew more about where you came from," he said softly, watching the gentle patterns flow across the armor surface. "Who made you? Why did you choose me?" Suddenly, the armor's surface began to glow with a soft blue light. Images appeared in Tom's mind, as clear as watching a movie. He sat up straight, amazed by what he was seeing. "Dr. Smith," he called through the station's communication system, "you need to see this." Within minutes, the main laboratory was filled with excited scientists. The armor was projecting its memories into the air, creating three-dimensional images that everyone could see. The images showed a civilization that had existed millions of years ago. They weren't warriors or conquerors. They were builders, artists, and explorers. Their bodies could change shape like water, and their cities were made of the same flowing metal as the armor. "The flowing ones," Dr. Smith whispered, recognizing the ancient race from old legends. "They disappeared so long ago that most people think they were just stories." More images appeared. The ancient race had created the armor as a way to share their knowledge with future civilizations. But they knew that raw power or technical skill wasn't enough. They wanted someone who could understand their way of thinking. "Look at how they interact with their technology," Bob pointed out. "They're not controlling it. They're working with it, like it's part of their family." The memories showed how the flowing ones valued emotional connections as much as logical thinking. Their greatest achievements came from understanding that both were needed to create something truly special. "That's why the armor waited," Tom said slowly, understanding dawning on his face. "It wasn't looking for the strongest or smartest being. It was looking for someone who could understand both feelings and facts, like humans do." The images changed to show how the flowing ones had studied many species across the galaxy. They had seen something special in humans, a unique balance of emotion and logic that reminded them of themselves. Your brain patterns match theirs almost exactly, Dr. Smith explained, checking the old data against new readings. Humans can be logical and emotional at the same time, just like they were. The armor showed more memories of its creation. The flowing ones had built it to adapt and grow with its chosen partner. It wasn't just a tool or a weapon. It was meant to be a bridge between the past and the future. But why did they leave? Someone asked. The final images answered that question. The flowing ones hadn't disappeared. They had evolved beyond needing physical forms. Before they left, they created things like the armor to help guide younger species toward understanding their wisdom. They're still out there, Tom said with wonder, just in a different form, and they left these gifts to help us grow. The armor's surface rippled with warm agreement. It had completed its first mission, finding the right partner. Now it could begin its real purpose, teaching humanity about the amazing things they could achieve. All this time, Dr. Smith said, shaking his head in amazement, we thought the armor was a weapon or a tool, but it's really a teacher. Tom smiled as the armor hummed happily against his skin. No, he corrected gently. It's a friend. That's what they wanted all along. Someone who would understand that technology isn't just about power, it's about connection. The laboratory fell quiet as everyone thought about what they'd learned. The greatest civilization in galaxy's history hadn't valued strength or power. They had valued understanding and friendship. And somehow, a simple human maintenance worker had understood that better than anyone. The attack came without warning. 3 massive ships appeared near the research station, their dark hulls covered in weapons. They didn't bother with demands or threats. They simply started shooting. Everyone to the emergency shelters. Dr. Smith's voice echoed through the station's speakers. Warning lights flashed everywhere as people ran for safety. Tom was in the middle of his cleaning routine when the first blast hit. The armor, which had been in its relaxed state, instantly formed around him. He felt its concern for the station's inhabitants, a feeling that matched his own worry. We have to help, he said, and felt the armor's immediate agreement. But Tom had never been in a fight before. He was a maintenance worker, not a warrior. I don't know what to do. The armor pulsed warmly, as if saying, trust me. Together, they ran toward the station's damaged section, where air was leaking into space. Without thinking about it, Tom reached out his hand. The armor flowed like liquid metal, extending from his fingers to seal the breach. Somehow, he knew exactly how to fix it. The armor was sharing its knowledge with him. The attackers are trying to board the station. Bob's voice came through the communication system. They're cutting through the docking bay doors. Tom ran to the docking bay, his feet barely touching the ground as the armor helped him move faster than any human could. When he arrived, he saw 5 large, heavily armed figures cutting through the last layer of metal. Stop, Tom shouted, trying to sound braver than he felt. The raiders turned, and he heard them laugh through their helmets. The famous armor, their leader said, stepping forward. Finally, hand it over, human, and we might let you live. Tom felt scared, but the armor sent waves of reassurance through his mind. He remembered what they had learned about the flowing ones, how they valued connection over confrontation. The armor isn't a weapon, Tom said clearly. It's not meant for fighting. Then this will be easy, the leader growled, raising his weapon. But Tom and the armor had other ideas. As the raiders fired, the armor didn't just protect Tom. It moved with him like a dance partner. Every shot missed as they flowed around the attacks like water. Tom reached out to the station's systems through the armor's interface. Together, they adjusted the artificial gravity, sending the raiders floating helplessly in the air. With another thought, they sealed the damaged doors and activated the security fields. How? One of the raiders demanded as he floated helplessly. That armor is meant for combat. How is a maintenance worker using it like this? Because he's not using it at all, Dr. Smith said, arriving with the station's security team. They're working together. That's what makes it special. The raiders' ships tried to flee, But Tom and the armor had one more surprise. They interfaced with the station's defense systems, not to destroy the ships, but to disable their engines with precise, careful shots. "That's impossible," one of the scientists whispered. "The targeting computers aren't that accurate." But they weren't using computers. The armor's fluid nature allowed Tom to feel exactly where to shoot, guided by both physical awareness and emotional intuition. Within minutes, all three ships were drifting harmlessly in space. After station security had arrested the raiders, Tom finally relaxed. The armor's surface rippled with patterns that everyone now recognized as pride and happiness. "You know," Tom said to Dr. Smith, "I was worried because I didn't know how to fight. But the armor knew we didn't need to. We just needed to protect and help, which is what I've been doing all along." The armor hummed in agreement, its surface showing patterns of friendship and trust that were becoming familiar to everyone on the station. Dr. Smith smiled. "Sometimes the best defense isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the wisest." News of what happened at the research station spread quickly across the galaxy. The story of how a human maintenance worker and an ancient armor had protected the station without harming anyone caught everyone's attention. But that was just the beginning. 3 months after the attack, the station had changed completely. It wasn't just a research center anymore. It had become a place of learning and discovery. Ships arrived daily, bringing visitors from all corners of the galaxy who wanted to understand the true meaning of the armor's choice. Tom stood at his favorite spot in the observation deck, watching the stars. The armor rippled contentedly around him, sharing his peaceful mood. Dr. Smith approached, holding a data pad with exciting news. "They've found more artifacts," he announced, showing Tom the images. "Hidden chambers all across the galaxy, just like the one where we found your armor. And guess what? They're all responding to human presence." Tom smiled. After their discovery about the flowing ones, this didn't surprise him. "They're waiting for the right connections," he said, "just like my friend here was." The armor sparkled happily at his words. Over the past months, their bond had grown even stronger. Tom still did maintenance work around the station. He enjoyed it, and the armor seemed to like helping with repairs. But they also spent time teaching others about what they'd learned. "Watch this," Tom said to a group of young aliens who had gathered around him. He and the armor created beautiful patterns of light in the air, telling stories about the flowing ones through images and colors. The children gasped in wonder, their natural curiosity matching the human ability to blend imagination with understanding. Bob, who had become the station's head of alien relations, often brought important visitors to watch Tom work. They were always surprised to find him fixing things or cleaning, the amazing armor happily helping with these simple tasks. "But you could do so much more," one visitor said. "You could be a warrior, a leader, a person of great power." Tom shook his head. "The armor didn't choose me because it wanted to make me something else. It chose me because it liked who I already was." The armor rippled in agreement, creating a pattern that everyone now recognized as laughter. More humans began arriving at the station, each hoping to connect with the newly discovered artifacts. But they quickly learned what Tom had discovered. You couldn't force a connection. The artifacts, like the armor, chose partners who understood that friendship was more important than power. "It's changing how everyone thinks about humans," Dr. Smith told Tom one day. "They used to see us as one of the weaker species. Now they're starting to understand that strength comes in many forms." The station became a place where different species learned to work together in new ways. The stone warriors began teaching classes about gentle movement. The light beings studied human emotions. Even the metal kings started building machines that could feel and respond to kindness. One evening, as Tom was finishing his maintenance rounds, he felt the armor share a new memory with him. It showed him the flowing one's final message, hidden deep within its systems until now. To those who learn to balance heart and mind, the universe opens endless possibilities. Our time in physical form is ending, but our hope lives on in those who understand that the greatest power lies in connection, not control. Tom touched the armor's surface gently. "Thank you for choosing me," he said softly. The armor's response filled his mind with warmth and friendship. It hadn't just chosen him. It had chosen humanity's capacity to fix things, to care, to wonder, and to grow. Together, they had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most important strength is simply being kind. As the station floated peacefully in space, Tom smiled. He was still just a maintenance worker who talked to his friend while fixing things. But now his friend was an ancient piece of living metal, and their simple friendship had changed the galaxy forever.